communicate that with your staff, that's going to be super important. Perfect. All right, so let's just break down. It's very simple. It's a three-step process to break down the one-on-one. Again, it might not be mind-blowing right now, but we'll get into some of the key details. Number one is to have a weekly goal, right? How would we set that? Which would be a lag measure. Number two would be commitments. Those would be your lead measure. Again, so we're talking the same language. And then the third one is optional, depending on the individual, is the action steps, which would be, well, it'd be a little bit more, a layer down on those lead measures, something even more controllable, like phone calls or, we'll leave it at, phone calls, talking to X amount of people, all right? The real measurement comes with 1 and 2. So just to get us on the same page, I think you're all pretty sharp with this. Give me an example, or define a lead measure. How would you define a lead measure?
Something that leverages towards the WIG.
Yep.
Something that is effective now so that when you get there, it's been affected by what you're doing now.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Exactly. So putting some more detail to that, right? It's, for one, it has to be measurable. If it's like, oh, I'm just going to talk to people this week, or I'm just going to call people, or I'm just going to ask for referrals. If it's not measurable, it doesn't fit in this category, and therefore it's not worth it. Also, you need to have at least 70% control of the situation in order to make that, because it's a commitment that we're making in this category. Therefore, if you don't do it, that's very bad, right? Because you had super control over it, okay? Lag measure, we know that's the end result, okay? Understanding that through time, a lag measure, every lead measure, I should say, can be a lag measure, right? If that makes sense. So right? So end result, you can actually peel the onion back even further, not to go too deep into that. All right, so example, right? Just to get here, want to lose 20 pounds, that's the lag. So what are the lead measures, simple, for losing 20 pounds? What are the lead measures to lose 20 pounds? Work out 4 days a week. Anything else?
Nutrition.
Nutrition, get specific. What would I do with it? Log your food, how many days? Every day, whatever your goal is, right? Precisely. Because every time I step on the scale, like that doesn't affect my weight, that's just giving me the end result. And then, again, trying to teach this to our team members is very important because I'm just going to go ahead and get some memberships this week. I'm going to go ahead and get some training this week. Okay, how are you going to do that? And again, the newer somebody is, the harder it is for them to understand that purpose, right? All right, so then lead examples and lags. Give me some lead measures for membership units. What are some lead measures for membership units?
Number of phone calls per day.
Phone calls per day would be considered, and you have a lot of control over that, right? What else?
Contacting frozen members with some sort of a promotion to get them back off of frozen and back in the club.
Yep. What else? Anything else? If you want to get some members.
Emails.
Text, emails.
Voicemail, I don't know, anything communication-wise, goal orientated.
Okay. Good. What else?
Business to business.
Okay.
Buddy referrals, asking X number of people for X number of names.
Yep. Good. So one of the things that we learned is when we made it as something as light as talk to X amount of people or ask X amount of people to the lead measure, like they could do that, but it rarely moved enough. So that's where we added that layer of commitments and then action steps, because ultimately the biggest lead measures to get memberships, number one is you need to get leads. No leads, no memberships. So, and you have 70% control over that if you think about how that process works, okay? Second on that list would be appointments. You get those leads, you should be booking at least 65 to 70% of those appointments. But just to back up, so how do you guys determine a lead goal for your club? You want to get 100 memberships this month. How many leads do you need?
We don't. This is a great question. I don't talk about that.
I actually built a calculator for that so I can put in various data. If my goal is to have 100 new memberships, I can put in the percentage of leads that are going to turn into appointments, that are going to turn into memberships, and so I can change that data around depending on how much effort we are putting into it. Effort's the wrong word. How many different programs we're putting into it, and so how I do it.
So you're getting granular, which is great, right?
Yeah.
So there, because what Don I think is saying is that so some leads are more valuable than others,
Sure.
right? A walk-in should be closed very high versus you know, an enter to win at the local GNC will be very low. Overall, though, a quick snapshot is normally at 25%. So if I want 100 memberships, I need a 4 multiplier, which is going to be 400 leads. So therefore, you are converting 25%. So that's a measurable thing to say, hey, is my team cultivating the leads to the level at which they need? Right? There's been times that we would only like 16 to 20%. And like, all right, somewhere along this line, if something's not happening, and then we would go to work to fix it. So the lead is the number one. No leads, no memberships. So if your team is like, well, I just wait at the door. Well, if you're in an area in which you can do that, God bless, continue to enjoy it for a short period of time. But you need to generate some of your own leads. Number 2 is the appointments, right? So this is where 65 to 70% of those, say it's 100 leads now, you need to book at least 65 to 70. And if they're not, well, then you can drill down, and that's a whole talk in itself on how to make sure that those appointments aren't happening. Speed to leads, messaging, as well as frequency. Most of your team members will tell you how often do they contact their lead. How often does your team member, so you just got a lead, you can't just have a web lead, like give me, right? Boom, how often is that team member think they're contacting the lead?
I'd say 3 times what I heard the most.
3 times? What should they be contacting? How often?
So they tell you to stop.
Yep. At minimum of 9 times in 3 days.
Wow.
Text, email, call, in some variation in a zone, right? You guys know what zone calling is? Or zone prospecting? Morning, afternoon, evening, right? Sales, right? You got, because if they don't answer at say 8 a.m., 9 a.m., well, don't keep calling at 8 a.m. because they've already told you that they're not available based on not answering. So then you go afternoon, then you go evening. Right? So most people will tell you, I contacted that person at least 3 or 4 times. If you look at the data, they're getting 1 to 1.5. You need to get to, and then with speed, you got to get to those leads fast, because if you don't get to them within 24 hours, ideally 13 minutes, but if you don't get them within 24 hours, they're going to spend so much more time having to do those calls, having to do those texts. So if you're like, oh, I'm just so busy, well, you're creating more waste of time by not getting to that lead. So speed is king. Shows, what do you guys like for shows? What percentage of shows?
About 60, 65.
That'd be fantastic.
That would
What do
be
we like or what do we have?
Yeah,
Well, what do you have, I guess?
closer to 50.
Yeah.
in actual 35 to 40.
Yeah.
That's probably where I'm
It-
actually.
Depending on the program that you're running, if you're running challenges, if you're hitting 40% show, you're doing good. If you have, again, web leads, 50+%. You gotta know, like, so make sure what we do, we set budgets for each of this so they understand, like, because if I get if I have to do 400 leads and I'm there, but I'm only booking 50% of those, I'm not hitting my goal. So I don't need to spend any time talking about my goal. I'm already off pace. I need to fix that, right? But if I'm booking 70% of my leads, but my shows are at 30%, I'm not gonna hit my goal, even if I have the first 2 categories. So I gotta work my way down this ladder in order to hit my end result. And that's the beauty of leads and lags. You're not eating right and you're not working out. Don't even get on the scale. I already know what the situation is going to look like. Don't talk to me about your membership sales. I already know what the situation is like. We got to fix the things that we can control. Otherwise, you're going to go insane. Closing percentage. What do you guys close at? What are you closing at? Numbers? Anybody?
Once they show up.
Yeah, so they're in front of you. So 8.5 out of 10 people are buying something. Very good.
85%.
Can anybody beat that? If you say you do, you're lying, because you're not, right? So if your team members tell you they're closing at 85, 90%, what they're doing is they're taking the leads that come in or the guests, and they're saying, well, Adam doesn't qualify because he lives, 4 miles from here. Chelsea doesn't qualify because she doesn't like the club, right? So if anybody's closing at 90%, it's false data, right? So 50% is kind of industry standard, but really you can move it to 70%. So 70% is really that key benchmark to get to, okay? Or if you do have some crazy skilled team members that you flush through it, well, either A, you're not charging enough, or B, you should teach them how to sell PT at point of sale, big packages, right, if they're that good, okay? PT units, what are some lead measures there? I want to get some PT units. There it is, right? No surprise here. got to have the same thing, fundamentals, right? So these are the things that are going to drive our end results. And that's where some of the other things that you guys mentioned are going to be the action step that we might need to kind of dive into further. But a great team member, they're only going to be staying here. They don't have to go, because that's the